you guys after this session. All right, let's just have a dialogue around what was discussed during the first three sessions, right? We spoke a lot about how to create a blue ocean, but once you've created a blue ocean, how can you sustain it, right? That's something that we did not discuss in detail during the first 3 days. Guys, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So now we probably look at it from a practical standpoint as to what happens when you have a product which is a blue ocean product out of the market, but sooner or later somebody starts copying you, and how do you deal with that, right? Because coming out with a blue ocean product is in itself not an achievement, right? It's about sustaining your blue ocean that really matters in the long term. So how do you keep on innovating, not necessarily from a product standpoint, but also from a service standpoint, also from a delivery standpoint? All of those avenues can be explored for recreating your blue ocean and further spreading your reach. So we'll look at the results of round blue 2 and then try and merge them with some learnings that we can take out of this particular round, and then align that thought with what we are supposed to do in round blue 3. And lest I say, no hope is lost for any team to win this at the end of round blue 3. Let me just share my experience with you. The first time I played this simulation was as part of my MBA program at Lancaster University. And at the end of round blue 2, there were about 15 teams playing that day, I guess. And we were number 14th at the end of round blue 2. But by the end of round blue 3, I still starkly remember the name of my team was Team Horse. So Team Horse actually ended up winning the race. So it can be that competitive as well, and the tide can change pretty soon in terms of your performance in round blue 3 year-on-year basis. So you have 3 more runs to go in round blue 3, which we will come to a little later. But let's start with round blue 2 and look at it in the same way that we looked at round blue 1, right? So we'll try and do an interpretation of the visual exploration and the suggested information which came onto the simulation after you had finished round blue 1. So again, who are my customers? What is the expected volume? What is their price sensitivity? What factors can I reduce or raise? What can I create? And what are the other potential create factors? So it remains the same as it was in the last round. Again, if you remember where we left off in the last session, we spoke about what are the commonalities across different parts and how can we focus on targeting those commonalities to come up with a product that will be lucrative to non-customers from these different parts that are available to us, right? That's what we spoke about. And in that lay the true mantra, so to speak, of how to go about your business. So if you look at commonalities between part 1 and part 5, there exists a plenty, right? Not just in terms of price sensitivity, but also in terms of the desired factors and the factors that they don't need also. So there's a lot of commonalities across part 1 and part 5. So that could have been an ideal solution in terms of operation if you look at it in terms of the volumetric growth that it can provide to you, right? Not just from the perspective of there being symmetries between these two parts, but also from just a mathematical perspective of how many units you can sell if you can target non-customers across these two parts, right? So from those two perspectives, if you combine that from the numerical perspective and the product similarity perspective, it's a no-brainer that you should go for part 1 and part 5. It's just a rational decision to make, yeah? So a pretty good solution would be when you combine these two and then you market your blue box for 3 years, as long as you can go. You reduce price on a year-to-year basis. So this should have kicked in at the start of round blue 1. That way you would have got 3 runs for this particular product. So you reduce everything that these customers don't want or eliminate it, and you raise some of the certain product factors that these 2 set of customers require, and you create your own new blue ocean product factors. Now these are commonalities that exist between these 2 parts, so you will not be incurring too much cost as well in terms of doing the R&D for the product. So you market it. So you start with a price of around, let's say, $250, and you reduce it by 10% to 15% on a year-on-year basis. Yeah. So what could have been the expected results of such a strategy? Unit sales of around 6.7 million units, value sales of around $1.4 billion, unit cost around $110 if you have significant economies of scale. That means you're producing on a large scale basis because you're targeting a large segment of the audiences. And the contribution after marketing, which would go into your EBITDA calculations, would be around 390 million in the bank. So that's what an ideal solution looks like, right? But having said that this is an ideal solution, you could focus on a singular path and have a very focused strategy, and then enable it with your service strategy and your distribution strategy, which comes in round blue 3, and you could give tough competition to anybody in the market, you know. So this is an ideal solution from a product perspective. Even if you've not got the product 100% right, you can still compensate by focusing on the service and the distribution aspects, which we will discuss in a bit. Yeah, so that's what the ideal solution looks like. Now we will go into looking around the strategy canvases that you've created, right? Let's start with Team Astronomy. So Team Astronomy is primarily focused on part 3. If you look at it, they've tried to be minimalistic in their approach and keep a very focused message that, you know, we're about giving you ability to control your gaming habits, and we'll provide you rechargeable batteries so that your kids can play as long as they want, right? So it's servicing the parents, which are part of part 3. If you look at Team Constellation, on the other hand, they've decided to go with a combination of part 1 and part 3, right? So for part 3, they have the factors of ability to control gaming habits and rechargeable batteries, but they also have extra gaming, right, which predominantly feeds into the sensitivities of the customers of part 1, right? So they've got a mix of those 2. Now, what I would like you guys to focus on are the parts that these teams are focused on, and later on you can actually map it down, right? If you have a pen and paper handy, just write down what part each team is focused on, and then you can see if that reflects in their financial performance. So just some food for thought for you guys as we move along. Yeah. The Team Constellation focusing on part 1 and part 3. If you look at Team Earth, right, which was the leader at the end of round blue 1, they're focusing on part 3 and 5. Okay, we see somebody following the right strategy or no? What was it? Part 1 and part 5 is where the commonalities actually lie. But Team Earth has chosen to go with part 3 and part 5. They've built in the features of playing convivial games. All 3 parts? Not necessarily. Which one from part 1 is here? Maybe number of possible players? Yeah, so maybe you can say that it includes all 3 parts. Yeah, absolutely, so you can say that. Team Galaxy, again, focused on part 3. They have HDD storage, rechargeable batteries, and ability to control gaming habits. So they've got it all there, which is fine. They have a focused approach. Team Jupiter, again, focused on part 1 and part 5. Simplicity and ease of starting games, playing convivial games, exit gaming, online gaming. They've got it all there, right? So they've got their basics correct, but we'll have to see if that reflects in their financial performance also, because at the end of the day, this is your product design, right? Have you got everything else aligned with your product design to give you the financial growth? So have you focused on the right geography, or the right amount of geography in this particular case, if I may say so? Have you spent enough money on marketing to compensate for your message going across to your audiences? So those are also factors that contribute to a team's performance at the end of the day. So you have to keep those caveats in mind, that product design is one, but what do you do with that product is also very important, right? So we'll get into those dynamics pretty soon. Team Mars, if we look at it, it's again focusing on all parts. It's got elements that Team Constellation had. Think of Weevil Games, ability to control gaming habits, rechargeable batteries, extra gaming, all of that. So number of possible players as well. Team Mercury is again focusing on part 3, ability to control gaming habits and rechargeable batteries being the only 2 additions that they've done, which is again wonderful. But let's now see what's the impact of all of this product design on the base unit cost, right? So if you guys remember last time we discussed what could have been the righteous base unit cost. So if you look here on the graph, Team Galaxy has the lowest possible offering unit cost. This is the base unit cost, right? Team Constellation, sorry, is at 117. My apologies. And the solution unit cost we see is at $130. Now, Team Constellation has actually gone ahead and beaten that, right? Because of their focused approach that they've had. Now, this is just the base unit cost. This is not your actual unit cost, because your actual unit cost is related with how accurate was your production planning. So was Team Constellation in a position to do the accurate production planning so that it did not have a penalty applied to them for underproduction or overproduction? Let's just look at that, right? So the actual unit cost for Team Constellation is actually $95. So they've actually managed to reduce their actual unit cost. That means they've been able to achieve economies of scale, and they've chosen the right corporate projects, which has given their production capability such an up boost, and also their planning ability to actually gauge the demand which is out there and produce exactly or almost the same amount, and in that production achieve economies of scale through the corporate projects that they've executed. So good job Team Constellation on that front in keeping your costs down. If we look at, for example, Team Jupiter, right? So Team Jupiter had a base unit cost of $171, but the actual unit cost is $183. So that's actually gone up. So errors in production planning, I'm presuming, from Jupiter's side on this front, which leads to this particular occurrence. Guys, do you understand how the two differ, the base unit cost and the actual unit cost? Is the difference between the two clear, or should I lay more emphasis on that? Okay, thank you. Moving on. So the unit cost depends upon the corporate projects, the accuracy of your production planning, and the volume that you produce in each period, right? So either of these three can contribute or will contribute to the final numbers that come out on the actual unit cost. So 11% reduction for Team Constellation, as I said earlier, that's amazing. And Team Mercury also I should congratulate, because they also received a similar cost reduction. So good job done, Team Constellation and Team Mercury. Team Mercury, you're still a little ahead of the accurate solution, which is around $130. So maybe a little bit of work to be done on that front. But unfortunately, at the end of this round, you will not be able to change your product. So maybe keep that in mind while redesigning your service and your distribution offering for the next round, to keep an eye on the cost structures while coming up with a product. Yeah. All right. So pricing, let's look at pricing, right? How pricing has evolved over the past 3 years. So if you look at the graph, every team has actually come down and converged at the price band, which is from $200 to $300. There's one team that's actually gone below. Yeah, I am on the next slide. AK, which slide do you want me to go to?
I'm in the previous slide.
Oh, you want to go to the previous slide?
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
You written something related to the blue box thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the unit cost and the corporate projects? Can you explain that thing?
Sure, absolutely. So if you remember, we discussed in the previous session also, and at the onset of round blue 1 as well, that you have the availability of corporate projects at your disposal, right? Now, the aim of these corporate projects is to help you achieve cost consciousness.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Yeah. Now, so that is the corporate projects bit. And in terms of production planning, how that impacts the actual unit cost is pretty simple. If you overproduce, you get penalized. If you underproduce, you get penalized. So that impacts your base unit cost again. And the volumes that you're producing are actually justifying whether you're getting penalized or not. So these are the three areas that contribute to the actual unit cost, converting from the base unit cost. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Does anybody have any other questions on this front, or can we move on? Okay, I don't see a response coming, so I'm going to move on. Right, so we were discussing the price decisions for all the teams. As you can see on the graph, Team Jupiter or Team Constellation is the one who's actually priced their product under $200, by the end of year 46. Now, somebody, I think Sandeep, it was you who raised the question of, how you got a feedback about a particular product, and then there was a new Blue Ocean imitation that was launched in the market as well. So how do you deal with that? How did a blue box become a red box? So I think Team Constellation is a perfect example of how you can dismantle that space of your blue ocean becoming a red ocean by undercutting your price so much that whatever imitation comes into the market is not able to compete with you on price. So we discussed this when we discussed the pricing strategy, that what are the two ways of coming into a blue ocean and making it red? And you can undercut your price and you can come in, or you can come in with big pockets. So either of the two ways you can actually end up fulfilling that particular cause. So we'll look into it deeper, because this is just one particular data point. It has to be looked in conjunction with other data points to actually make sense of it, right? So moving on. So if you look at the geographical expansion in terms of what was the evolution from the last round to this particular round. So by the end of year 46, majority of the teams have tried to expand their coverage, but there are a couple of teams which are still holding back on expanding their geography. Amazes me, to understand. Probably somebody from Team Jupiter can explain if they're here. Team Jupiter, by the end of year 46, you've just covered 70% of round length. What's happening there? Don't you see the scope of growth with expanding your geography? Anybody from Team Jupiter who can answer that question for us? Okay, maybe somebody from Team Mercury, because you also haven't covered, you've just touched what, 100% of round length, or somebody from Team Galaxy or Team Astronomy. Why haven't you guys gone in for a larger expansion geographically? Any specific reasons why you've been holding back, guys? Okay, nobody seems to be responding, so I'm gonna move on. Guys, can you hear me all right? Is this working? Is this a two-way communication still? Oh yeah, now everybody jolts back into life. But now I'm giving responses, huh? That's funny. Okay, anyways, let's move on. So a few teams are ahead, but for the other ones, but again, there could be two ways, which I was trying to deduce. It depends upon how good a product that you've designed, right? And if it's created demand also or not. So if you've not created a good product, the forecast will also not show you a good demand, right? And also the fact that you're not generating revenues, and so there is no increase in budget that's happening. So this could be a sort of a vicious cycle that some teams might fall into, right? Because you didn't get the product right the first time, the second time when you attempted it, you still couldn't get it right because of whatever reasons. Maybe you spread it too thin, or maybe you were too focused. You didn't find the right balance in terms of product design and base unit cost and your price, which then ultimately defines your margins, right? So you still have the opportunity, and I say it over and over again, that you still have the opportunity to beat the odds by having a killer service and a killer distribution strategy, which you get the chance to create in Blue 3. So watch out for that. Don't be disheartened. Let's look at the marketing budget, because this has to be looked at in lieu of the geography that a team is covering. So if you look at Team Mercury, who are spending the most here, have covered only 100% of Roundland. They haven't even moved into Starland. So maybe Mercury, in terms of your geographical expansion, you're spending too much on marketing, and maybe that's the rationale behind you not having enough money to invest on R&D or corporate projects. So just some food for thought, guys, for you guys to look at your marketing budget in line with your geographical expansion. So just to make a case in point, if you look at the team that's covered the most geography, which is Constellation and Earth, let's have a look at their budgets, right? So Constellation is spending around 75,500, which is close to 75 million, and Jupiter spending Earth spending about 45 million, right? So have a watch out for this also. In terms of how it impacts the final share price index, right? So please forgive me for that comment. That's from one of the previous batches. My bad, I forgot to delete that one. All right, so let's look at the team results. So that was the diagnosis of what you guys have achieved thus far, right? Now let's move on and look at the actual results, the numbers that have come in. First and foremost, market size comparison, right? So who did best in growing the market? So that's the total number of products that have been sold by each team. It was 9.7 million units in year 43. So from year 43 to year 46, Team Constellation has managed to grow the market by more than 60%. That means they've brought in 60% of non-customers into the market, right? Everybody's grown the market, but Constellation and Earth have actually grown it better than anybody else. And the whole point of Blue Ocean strategy is to expand the existing industry space, right? So in terms of expanding the market size, Team Constellation, wonderful job done. 60% increase in market size from year 43, commendable job. And with the price points that you have, it's just great. Offering unit sales in terms of 1,000 units sold, Team Constellation again leads the way with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So around 5 million units for Team Constellation that they've sold out here. Team Earth has sold around 3.5 million units. So good job done, Team Earth as well. Team Galaxy and Team Jupiter, time to up the ante and take a non-risky approach perhaps for the next round. Put all your eggs in one basket would sound just about right for you guys in the next round, right? So if you look at the unit sales for Redbox, it was about 1.8 million units, right, in this particular year, give or take, pretty much 1.8 average figure for all the teams, because it was a little different for each team, and I'll explain that to you as to why. So Team Constellation, you were able to sell around 3.5 million Blue Box units in 3 years' time. It's just phenomenal. That's great. So if you look at offering unit sales for Redbox, these are the offering unit sales for each team. As I said, 1.8 million units is average. Now, if anybody wonders why these figures are different, because everybody would have transferred different amount of money from Redbox to Blue Box. So the computer had different amount of input capital to take care of Redbox, which is reflected in the differential growth of Redbox for different teams. I hope that is clear for everybody. Is that clear, everybody? All right, perfect. Thank you. Now let's look at what has happened, in this particular round. So 2 invitations have been launched, and the simulation informs you about that. So you've got your offering unit sales of the blue console and the blue pack. So what's happening, right? Blue console was launched by Yellow Bananas, and blue pack was launched by the low cost imitator in this particular case. In terms of value sales, right, and we'll come back to the imitators and how to confound them, and have a dig at that. But let's look at the value sales that each team has generated. So 872 million in terms of value sales is what Team Constellation has generated. 686 million in value sales is what Team Earth has generated. So a lot of gap between the two still, and a lot of catching up for the other teams to do as well. So you can see the trajectory on what it's moving to. But let's take Team Constellation for an example to understand, what was their approach to beat these imitators. Because by the view of the results, it seems that they've been able to manage that really well. So if anybody from Team Constellation is present, can you guys speak up on your approach a little bit? You can try it, Nagesh. Okay, so maybe we will get back to that later. So let's just move on. But in terms of understanding this, I just want to draw your attention that the only way that an imitator can actually succeed is by undercutting you, right? And we all understand that. So look at the Flipkarts and the Amazons of the world, right? It's cost cutting at its bare minimum, right? So if you have to undercut someone in this particular industry, which is the video game console industry, you have to play it on price. Now, to mitigate that, if I already acknowledge that, I don't have a product which has a higher IP protection, so I might not be able to protect this with a higher price, I have to be street smart from the very beginning in terms of looking at my costing structures and also at my pricing strategy. So I have to design a product which is lower manufacturing cost, per unit manufacturing cost, but I can compensate in terms of my margins, right? That's the leverage that I'm trying to achieve. Design a low cost product which gives higher value. That's value innovation coming from Blue Ocean strategy. AK, can we take that post? We've had a discussion on the numbers, and then maybe then we can take that. Yeah, because that'll be a very different discussion than this one. Thank you for understanding. So the contribution of your pricing strategy to mitigate the imitation factor is paramount. So if you've got the right costing, you can then come up to an adequate pricing which will not let competitors who are coming in afresh with deep pockets undercut you, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how Flipkarts of this world, compete with the Amazons of this world in the Indian online retail space. E-tail, if I can call it, or whatever verbiage you wish to use. So it's going to be interesting because it is a red box, right? So how do you actually look at creating a blue ocean in that market is going to be very interesting. So in terms of offering value sales, the red box value sales contribute about 800 million. It'll be a little different for the different teams. If you can see, the red box contribution is now on your screen on the top hand right section. So for Team Astronomy, it's around 584 million, and you can actually look at what the contribution would have been otherwise. So if you look at Team Astronomy, your value sales for red box have been higher than red box and then blue box. But for Team Constellation, they've actually outgrown red box. So kudos Team Constellation, you're doing much better than the simulator at this point in time, I must say. Team Earth, you've actually not managed to outgrow the red box. So red box is still the main contributor in terms of value sales, may not be in terms of the SPI though, right? So let's look at the team EBITDA in millions for the end of round blue 2. Okay, so blue box EBITDA in terms of $1 million is available on this particular sheet. Team Constellation's EBITDA is around 273 mil, which is sweet. Again, congratulations. You've got it spot on with your product strategy and you've backed it up with perfect planning in terms of production and also choosing the right corporate projects, which we'll get to see in a little while, right? Team Constellation, great with the EBITDA. Moving on, if you can see the contribution of EBITDA from blue box, again for Team Constellation and Team Earth, it's positive, same as for Team Mars. For all the other teams, your blue box is actually contributing negatively for your EBITDA. Absolutely, absolutely. That's the spirit. Okay, and this is the offering EBITDA for red box. So I'll let you chew on those numbers for a bit. So for which team is red box contributing how much amount to the EBITDA figures? All right. So moving on, let's look at the cumulative investments in corporate projects in $1 million terms that each team has done. So we can see straight away Team Mars leading the way with $31 million in investments in corporate projects. Team Jupiter the close second with $25 million here. Team Constellation has invested around $18 million. Team Earth, a curious case, right? Just $5 million spent, the lowest of the lot. So maybe it's time for you, Team Earth, to loosen a little bit of your pockets. But I'm just wondering if it might be a case of too late, too soon, or too late, too soon. Yeah. Right. Let's see the impact, right? So here, Mercury. Team Mars and Team Jupiter are the ones making massive investments, but are they choosing the right projects? That's also very important. So you might make an error of judgment in choosing the wrong project with your corporate strategy, and that might not pay dividend to you in the long run. So let's go ahead and let's look what's the impact of the corporate projects on your COGS, your general and administrative expenses, and your R&D spend. So if you look at it, Team Constellation and Team Mercury have actually had 11% reduction in their COGS by choosing the right projects. Team Mercury did not even invest that much, right? Team Constellation did invest a lot. So Team Mars and Team Jupiter is having 10%. That's great, but Team Mars has actually not been selecting the right projects. It's not showing up in your COGS cost reduction. So something for you to ponder on. This is the reduction in gross and administrative expenses. Interesting to see that one team, Jupiter, has had a negative impact, right, of choosing this project. So every time you choose a corporate project, it might have a positive impact or a negative impact. That's how business runs, right? So this one's had a -2% impact on your general and administrative expenses. And let's look at R&D. My oh my. Team Mars, 17% reduction in R&D spend. Team Jupiter, 10%. So, and this is just 3 years work, right? In 3 years, you've managed to achieve 17% reduction in your R&D spend by just making a smart choice of choosing the right corporate project. So that also shows that your blue ocean strategy has to be supplemented with a blue ocean strategy of sorts in choosing the right corporate projects, which are aligned with your interest and give you the long-term results in having your cost structures right. Okay, so for example, Sandeep, I'll answer your question in a very simple way, right? If you are launching the agile methodology of operation, right, in your workforce, what sort of a corporate project would you want to align with it? If you want to have a lean methodology adopted in your organization, what sort of an approach or what sort of a corporate project would help enable that thought process in the organization? Anybody who wants to take that question up? Okay, absolutely. And let's say, for example, if you're venturing into something which is not your domain expertise, right? If a business is entering into a different business stream which is not their area of expertise, what would be the right corporate project? R&D, or maybe establishing a knowledge center around that particular domain within the organization, so that knowledge center can then disseminate information. Wouldn't that be a better alternative for that sort of a project to percolate downstream? You know, yeah, a center of excellence of sorts. Absolutely. So that could fit in the need perfectly. So it depends upon what sort of a strategy are you choosing. So Sandeep, I cannot answer that question in the context of the simulation, because that would be, yes Sandeep, you can. Hold on a second. I'm gonna pass on the controls to you. Okay. Sandeep, I'm passing the controls over to you.
Okay, so I believe you can see my screen.
Yeah, can you just zoom it a little bit?
Sure. So actually, this is the table I got in the simulation. Okay. And it says that these projects are available only in red round. These are only in blue 1, and these are in blue 3 only. There is no one for blue 2. So what does it mean?
So what does it mean?
Yeah.
In round blue 2, Sandeep, when you access the simulation, were there options available to you to choose corporate projects?
Yeah.
So as Arun's saying, after the red round, the projects that were not availed are available for the rest of the rounds as well, because you had that opportunity to choose. What happens is that whatever project, so you would see the listing of all the projects that are available, but you'll only be able to access the particular projects which are valid for that particular round. And after the red round, certain projects become unlocked, which are available for use for the rest of the rounds as well. Does that answer your question, Sandeep?
Okay. Because we got confused that we can choose only these 4 projects in blue one.
No, but
Okay,
then when you went on to the simulations corporate project section, it would have shown you the list of available offers that you could choose, right? And that is the major platform where you're making all your decisions. So that should have been the platform where you should have addressed that query. Or I think you asked me this question on the WhatsApp group as well, right, Sanjeev?
Yeah.
I think I've answered that back then also. But if it's still a confusion, I hope it's been sorted out now, yeah?
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah, thanks.
All right, you pass back the controls to me.
Sure.
All right, perfect. Yes, just give me a second. I'm trying to get the controls back. All right, guys, can you see my screen now? Just let me know when you can see my screen. Okay, fabulous. So SPI at the end of year 46, which is the final deciding factor, is available for you guys here. So as you can see, Team Constellation has frog leaped the rest for now. So they stand at an SPI 1118, which is.
Sorry to disturb you, but we cannot see your screen.
Oh, fair enough. Perfect. That's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. Guys, can you see my screen now? Yeah, works. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Sorry for this. Okay. So that's the final share price index for each team. Team Constellation stands at an SPI of 1118 at the end of this particular round, compared to a base SPI of 1000 in year 40. Team Earth's a close second with an SPI of 1067. Team Mars is not too far behind. Team Jupiter is also pushing through. Astronomy and Mercury, you've got a long way to go. So buckle up. It's going to be a crazy ride for the next 3 years. So you might get your trekking shoes along, yeah? Okay, so Blue 2, key learning points. Let's look at what we should have focused on, but we didn't actually. Or if we did, we actually saw the results coming out for the teams that performed well in this particular team, right? First, it's commonality, and I tried to stress on it in as long as I could, for as long as I could in the last session also. So if you identify commonalities across non-customer types, it helps you merge your strategy canvases and focus on a larger share of non-customers, right? So that's very important. Again, always focusing on lowering your cost structures. They're no longer trade-off, so you cannot have any baggages on your books in terms of the wrong business or the wrong product factors being there. So eliminate or reduce them to whatever extent you can, right? So what actually happens in reality is organizations may not get the strategy canvas right the first time, right? Because most of the companies raising and reducing the offering level along the traditional factors of competition is a mindset that we have, right? Competitive strategy is so ingrained in our brains that to actually venture into the blue ocean space as a business, at the first go, when you come out with a product, you think, This is just not anything different. It's what I've been doing regularly, and that's what then creeps in and dissuades people from not following that approach to better that product. So you've come up with a particular Blue Ocean product, it doesn't work for whatever reason. Maybe you've not felt the non-customer's priorities right. Maybe your product design needs to be relooked at, but you need to give it another shot, to fine tune your product and identify what are the flaws in your strategy, because as a concept, this works, not just in theory, but in practice as well. We've seen that in the examples that we've done, So it is something which is tangible, but are we able to get to that point? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves today. And over and above everything else, strategic pricing. That's the answer to imitation, right? Your strategic pricing, if you remember the curve, is based upon two primary elements. First is, what is the degree of imitation that your product has? So if you are not high on patents, and if you're not high on IP, you cannot overprice a product, because imitation will definitely creep in. It always invariably does. And when it will, and you price at a higher price point, you will always face a challenge. Look at Apple. Apple's a classic example in this particular category in terms of strategic pricing. If Apple had got the strategic price, which would have enabled it to capture the mass market, do you think Sony or Samsung or any of these companies that are manufacturing phones these days would even be in business? I don't think so. I don't really think so. So that could have been a completely different ball game where Apple would have monopolized the whole world in terms of smartphones. That could have been a story. In at least my mind, I believe in that, and I'm happy thinking about what could have been. You guys might have your own opinion about it, but that's all right. And again, organizations traditionally price too high when they have an innovation of any sort, believing that they can milk the innovation. But in the current world, it's all about customer acquisition at the onset. If you can get your hooks into them and you can keep them with you, there's nothing that can stop imitation undercutting you. So that's another food for thought that emerges from this particular discourse, right? Guys, if you have any questions on what we've shared thus far, I'd like to take them now.
So Piyush, we had two chances to change our canvas, but now we cannot change it, and we have to play around service delivery, warranty, etc. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So in this case, means can we now reduce our price, or it will remain same?
Absolutely. Price you can work upon, because see, your price would now also have the added component of the service and delivery mix, so that flexibility you'll have.
Piyush, is in the service delivery, do we getting any new thing from the Aegis perspective?
Yeah. We'll get to that. Don't worry. The next half, the remaining 30 minutes are targeted just at that.
Yeah, because I'm reading to the other Roundway documents.
Yeah.
It's provided some related to some service delivery models.
Yes.
From the Aegis perspective.
So we're going to do two small mini cases, right, to help you understand this better. Service and delivery, both. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Nagesh has a question. He says, does it also mean that innovation with price increase is not good in the long run? Okay, innovation for innovation's sake is actually not good, but innovation for the sake of, when you're actually innovating, not just from a product standpoint, but also from a service standpoint, right? That is when it actually becomes very important, right? So that is, and again, Nagesh, let me speak to you on that on a one-on-one note. Okay, I cannot comment on that. I really cannot, because no, for me personally, innovation and jugaad are two different things, and there's a lengthy conversation where I can actually explain to you how they're different and cite examples as well. But I think we've got too much on our platter right now for that conversation, Sandeep. Maybe we can have a phone call sometime this week. Yeah, sure. I'll be up for that. And Nagesh, please feel free to give me a call and we'll discuss at length that particular question, because see, I'll give you one thought on it. Very simplistic, right? Apple again, perfect case in point, right? Innovation, not for the heck of innovation, but for improving lifestyle, right? That was their motto. We improve your life for the better. Every time we come out with something, it's the best product. It's gonna change your life, so on and so forth. But whose life are they changing? Are they changing the life of the masses, or a particular target segment group that can afford their products because of their pricing strategy? Because believe you me, in terms of the massive economies of scale that Apple has, Apple can undercut anybody, but it doesn't, because that then becomes a branding game altogether, right? But we're talking about mass market growth for products and services in red oceans primarily, So maybe that is a thought that will help you answer whether innovation and price can go hand in hand or not, right? Apple, still, innovation and price goes hand in hand. People buy it, great. For the masses, not really that great, right? So end to the means to the end. That sort of a debate this one is, right? All right, guys, moving on. That's round blue 2, and congratulations to everybody. Yes, obviously, Micromax is for them. You can actually look at that, right? So absolutely, I completely agree with you. So a massive round of applause for all the teams that have done really well. And I will urge you guys to learn something from my experience when I played this simulation first time. I was number 14 at the end of where we are today, and by the end of round blue 3, we had actually won it, right? So if we could have done it, you could have done it as well. You could do it as well. All right. So again, gosh, it's been a long while. I don't really remember what our strategy was, but yeah, if it comes back, I'll definitely ping you, Sandeep. Okay, breaking away from the competition again, because imitators have cropped in. This price wars happening. So like Simar said at the start of the webinar, blue's not blue anymore, it's become red. So you have to break away from the competition again. This is blue 3, starts in year 47, decisions for year 47, 48, 49 in this particular round. Your offering is beginning to be imitated. Your competitors will also have adoption curves like your product. The initial sales are low, but they will increase over time because they are also imitating your particular product, right? This time again, your executive team goes back to the field, explores the 6th part, but this time not from a product perspective, but a service and a delivery perspective, right? So Mike and his team believe that further demand can be created by investigating how the product is being delivered and what's the service around the product, right? So the services that are currently offered by Blue Buddies and its competitors, you have warranty offers, you have extended warranty schemes, loyalty cards and rewards, ease of repair, and this information is again available in the simulation, so I'm not going to get into the details of it. I'm just trying to give you a gist of what all services are currently available, yeah? So you've got deliveries, and so those were the services. Here is the delivery format right now used by Blue Buddies and its competitors. So all competitors distribute through same set of distributors, right? There are no flagship stores, no direct supply on the internet, nothing like that, right? Informed salespersons, if you look at that, the manufacturer plays an active role in training salespeople, but not every distributor does a good job on educating their salespeople, right? So demonstration on consoles are seldom used and poorly maintained. So that's food for thought for you, which is available. There's information around deals and price promotions. There's information around number and complexity of bundles that are available currently. So evaluate these in detail while we're going through the information.
Piyush, one question.
Sure.
If we are offering online games, then these distributors they do not come into picture because customers will buy directly from the company. Is my assumption correct?
Yeah, but by online games we mean the fact that you can play this game online on your PS3 or your Nintendo or your PS4 with other people who are online. So that's online gaming. That's the differentiation. We're not saying we're selling games online. They're two different things.
So
Does that answer your question?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah? All right. Okay. So you've looked at the service platforms and the delivery platforms. Now let's look at two mini cases to understand how Blue Oceans can be created by adopting a service and a delivery channel. Let's look at Dell computers. Yeah. Dell is a classic example of how you can change your entire delivery model. Yeah. So what did they eliminate and raise when they actually came into being? They eliminated sales intermediaries. They reduced R&D spend, product range, and factory inventory. When Dell started delivering or shipping products directly from factories, that's when we're talking about the major change in the computer industry. Yeah. What did they raise? They raised vendor integration and customer service. They created mass PC customization and factory direct delivery, right? That was a strategy where they looked at their service component and their delivery component and say, right, how does a Dell computer reach a consumer at this point in time? How can I look at that and change how that functions to create a new bunch of non-customers coming in to buy my products? What is my service experience like? How can I do a Blue Ocean with my service delivery? So that is a perfect example for that, right? What did they reduce? They reduced the cost by removing intermediaries, R&D, product range, and factory inventory, and they raised value for the end consumer. So that's value innovation for you by looking at this particular avenue. So if you want to chart out the buyer experience cycle, you can track it by this particular grid. So if you can see, this is a 6x6 grid, right? This is called a buyer utility map. I can share this with you, and then you can probably use it. I'm going to explain this to you as to how this works, right? So there are 6 different stages of a buyer's experience cycle, which are on your x-axis, right? So right from purchase to delivery, to usage, to supplements that are used, because no product is used in isolation. So if I use a trimmer, I need to use electricity to charge that trimmer, right? So that's a supplement that I use. Maintenance, how easy or difficult is the product to maintain? And when I dispose the product, how good or bad is it, right? So these are the 6 stages of a buyer experience cycle. And then you look at these from 6 different utility levers from a user's perspective, from your buyer's perspective, right? So productivity, simplicity, convenience, risk, fun and image, and environmental friendliness. So you can actually chalk out how your product, service, and delivery is actually impacting your customers based on these 6 levers which are on the y-axis. Yeah. So as far as if you look at the PC industry, the customer productivity and the simplicity in terms of disposal was non-existent. So that's where the pain points actually lie for the PC industry. Now, if you look at other hardware manufacturers, they were just looking at the usage. How does a manufacturer actually use a particular software, and what are the supplements associated with it? So can you get a CD drive? Can you get a USB drive along with that? But that said, we're going to look at the purchase and delivery side and the maintenance side, and that's where we create our Blue Ocean, focusing on these 4 factors of productivity, customer productivity, simplicity, convenience, and taking the risk out, so that you get original products which are coming straight out of the factory. So that was the ideology that Dell actually adopted by looking at this experience cycle. The second one, in the second one in contention is Virgin Atlantic, right? Is everybody aware with Virgin Atlantic, or should I give you a brief preview of what Virgin Atlantic is? Richard Branson. Okay. Arun, would you like to inform everybody of what Virgin Atlantic is?
Am I audible?
Yes, Arun, go on.
So, I mean, not in detail, but Virgin Atlantic is basically the airline that Richard Branson had essentially founded or put on the market.
Yeah. So it's one of the most luxurious airlines available and caters to.
And I think Kingfisher also tried to follow up on a similar kind of model for India.
Yeah, but it didn't fly that well, right?
So that didn't fly too well, yeah.
Yeah. So this is primarily providing world-class services to the business class. So how do you fly? So if you can see the images, that's the kind of flying experience that they offer on their flights, right? So we're talking about how can your service experience transform the whole concept of your product offering, right? So what did they eliminate as part of their offering? So they eliminated first class category. They said, okay, we're not going to have any first class, right? Everything would be same in our aircraft. They eliminated capital asset management. So they were not managing, they were not actually going ahead and buying planes. They were just leasing planes and using them for their flights, customizing them, leasing them for a long period of time and then customizing them as per their needs. They reduced the number of routes. So they said, right, we're going to focus on transatlantic flights. That's where they actually focus on. They reduced the traditional TV advertising because they said, okay, traveling has to be more impersonal in their case. They raised the business class comforts, in-flight and clubhouse experiences, and they created ground transportation services to match none other in the particular business, right? What did they achieve? In the process, they achieved cost savings by eliminating the asset high model of operations, and then they raised the value for the end consumer in terms of providing him an absolutely wonderful experience. They say if you fly Virgin Atlantic once, you don't want to fly anything else in this world, right? I haven't flown it yet, so maybe if someone from this group does fly Virgin Atlantic, they should share their experiences. It'll be a good mirror for us all. Yeah. So service and delivery. 2 case studies in the form of Dell and Virgin Atlantic as to how you can reorient the entire product offering by looking at service and delivery, right? How will you now utilize this? So you have a second visual exploration available to you. So you can read and debate the second visual exploration conducted by the executive team just like the first time. Now you have to create a separate strategy canvas which is for a service and delivery platforms. So your product strategy canvas is fixed. It remains the same as it was last time, and this time you create a new strategy canvas. You would decide on how to allocate your total budget across obviously your red ocean and your blue ocean, any corporate projects that you might want to choose. So simplistic choices, you'll make decisions to market Blue Box for 3 more years, right? So a glimpse of what the second year's or the second visual exploration holds for you. It tells you about 2 parts, like the first visual exploration, which you can choose. So part 4 is looking across complementary products and service offerings. And part 5 is giving you insights by looking across the functional and emotional orientation of your industry, right? You have some figures available to you in terms of customer data that will fall into this particular category exactly like last time, right? But this time the factors are different than in terms of service and delivery. So the deliverable remains the same. The context of the information changes, right? So it should be easy. Some of the new potential create factors available to you are listed here. The one that you see in black are already available ones. The one that you see in blue or light blue are the ones that are newly available. Detailed information on all these service and delivery factors is available on the simulation. At any point in time you can access it, right? Now, major decisions, yes, you can't change products, Samir. Unfortunately, your product remains the same, but you can further unlock a massive blue ocean by just focusing on service and delivery. The process, as I said earlier, remains the same. The utilization of the simulation remains the same. That's how you draw your strategy canvases. That's how you do your decisions in terms of production planning, marketing budget, geographical expansion. Teams that haven't done well on geographical expansion or marketing budgets, please take a leap from this particular session and the performance of your competitors, Team Constellation, Team Earth. Take a leaf out of their book in terms of how they've approached it, and may the best team win, right? Now, there are 4 new corporate projects available to you in this particular round. You could radically upgrade your leadership and service in the customer contact center, right? You could hire expert trainers to train distributors, salespeople. Again, you could hire a top team from a regional specialist luxury good retailer. You could hire a team experience in developing and managing a fast food franchise. Again, all these 4 corporate projects are very, very divergent from each other. They have to be chosen, kept in mind what your service and delivery strategy is. Please keep in mind what your service and delivery strategy is going to be, and then accordingly choose any one of these projects or a combination or all 4 of them if you have the money. Yeah. So that's how it is going to work, ladies and gents. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them now. The simulation will be available to you after the session today. So, any questions on what is expected out of you in round blue 3?
So, Piyush, you said 4 new projects are available, and we will have older projects also which are available.
The older projects would also be available to you, but just keep in mind the utility. Some projects take a longer time to provide you utility. So if a project takes about 4 years to show dividends and you only have 3 years in this run, it will not be wise of you to select that particular project. Yeah. Okay. Friday morning, I'm okay with that. I'll extend it till let's say Friday noon. How does that sound, Arun? Friday noon, everybody? Works? Yes, 3 decisions for 3 years. Again, I'm gonna type it as well so that I have proof. Friday noon it is, the final submissions. Me and Manik are available here to answer any of your questions. Manik, you want to say a quick hi? Okay, I guess Manik is left. So maybe not. Hey guys, questions, thoughts, views, experiences, anything?
So, Piyush, actually, can you give the overview of all 3? What is the difference between all 3 rounds?
Okay, the difference between the 3 rounds is very simple. Round blue 1 is created to just help you focus on the product. Round blue 2 is to help you focus on strategic pricing, and round blue 3 is to help you focus on creating a blue ocean through service and delivery platforms. That's what the focus is of these 3 rounds.
No, sorry, my question was wrong. For year 47, 48 and 49, what is the difference?
There's no difference. There's no difference. The 3 rounds, the 3 years of the same round, your focus has to be because you can't change the product. So what can you change? You can change the service and the delivery platforms in the way the product is being delivered and the type of customer service you're providing, right? Plus, you can work on your pricing. You have 3 more years to work on your pricing, because your pricing will now have a component of the service and delivery platform that you are creating as well. So for example, if you go ahead and set up, let's say, a retail store to sell your consoles, that's a capital investment which will have an impact on your per unit base cost, which in turn will have an impact on your final price, right? So you have to be mindful of that fact that the product is gone, but still the service and delivery is going to impact your per unit cost. So you have to be mindful of that and work on the strategic pricing along with working on the service and delivery platforms. Again, AK, very sorry. I try to put all the information for as long as I can. You know, the fact that you have the video can still put me in trouble, but I'm taking the chance so that at least there's one avenue through which you can go through that information. Yeah. Really sorry about this, but my hands are tied as well.
And Piyush, what is the budget available for all these 3 years?
I can't tell you. It's what was available to you. It's how much you earned in year 46. Yeah, that's what.
Okay, so no new budget is available.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, guys. If there are no more questions, should we call it a night then? It's been a long day for everybody. Okay, yes, go, AK, go on. I can sit as long as you guys want. I'm perfectly all right.
Yeah, I just was ask one question, Piyush. Piyush, related to the online sales which I asked. One minute, let me reformat that.
Sorry?
I have a query on online sales companies which are entering in direct retail marketing, like Just Born and Lenskart. Do this Indian customer is not satisfied with the quality of products when they purchase online, or any other thoughts in Indian mind?
That's a difficult one. Okay, so I think there are two hurdles here, right? First is reach, and second is acceptability, right? And this is just my perspective, and I might be wrong, right? So don't quote me for it. Okay, reach in terms of where your next non-customers are going to come from for these online whatever you're selling, irrespective of the product that you're selling. If you're selling it online, where's your next inflow of non-customers going to come in terms of geography? It's going to come from your tier 3, your tier 4, and your tier 5 cities. How is it going to come? It's a question of reach of the internet and the penetration that you can achieve in these regions, which is happening through the telecom companies anyway. So that channel is being laid out, right? And obviously with the Digital India push, that's also another trend in that space. So you can look across time and say, right, that what are the industries that are going to work better in that space. So that's one industry that's going to work better. But the second aspect is acceptability also, right? So is it okay for me to buy something online? You know, that's also a big hurdle in terms of mindset that the Indian consumer has to cross before we can think about online retailing being the next big thing. I mean, it is going to be, but how do you cross that hurdle? That's going to be interesting for me to watch out for as well. You know, I have a few ideas on how that could work, but then again, depending upon who does it first. That might be.
Is there any thought they are thinking from bringing from this red ocean to the blue oceans?
So I think this is a mixed bag, right? This is you can say in a way a space which would not fall into the category of a red becoming a blue. This is more so a virgin blue of sorts, right? Because these are untapped customers, more or less, right? People who make a first-time online purchase. They are people who have access to the internet, but are not choosing to make that purchase for whatever reasons or lines, right? So if you look at what what's the name of this company that sells spectacles online, Lenskart, right? Let's
Yeah.
start with that face modeling, technology. How can technology solve that? So the main concern for people was that, okay, I can see what a frame looks like, but I don't have the look and feel of how it would look like on me, right? So they use technology to remove that hurdle. So acceptance can be looked at in terms of hurdles as well, right? So what is hindering your non-customer from becoming a customer? And then you work backwards to solve that particular problem through a form of innovation. It could be technology led, it could be marketing led, it could be product led. So there could be multiple ways of looking at it, and not just one particular thought that I can leave you with. Maybe I'll end up confusing you more than solving your question, but I'm just thinking out loud with you here, AK.
It might be changed. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, AK? No.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I got it clear, sir. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect, AK. Anybody
you.
else have any questions? Or should we bid adieu and say good night? Though I'm sure for a lot of you it's not going to be good night that early. Alright, Sandeep says good night. So let's call it a good night, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out this evening. I'm going to share the link as and when it's available, and see you guys on Saturday, the final session, and do well. I'm going to open up the simulation for play just after this call. Have a wonderful night's sleep. See you on Saturday.